All right, we are recording now, and as just a reminder to folks who are on the call, we will pause the recording at the end during the Q&A section so that you don't have to feel kind of on display in your sharing with questions that come up at the end. But this way, folks who aren't able to be here are able to practice later, or you can return to this and practice on another day as well. So thank you, Barbara, for the introduction and the invitation for us to all be here now. That is, in fact, our goal in coming together and sharing some self-care and mindfulness to us with us. And I would just ask that you arrive here with kindness and with curiosity. I think that those are the attitudes that really support self-care at this time. We don't have to push away what's happening, and we'll actually, that'll be our exploration today. So with that, Crystal's gonna offer us some words, some thoughts about practice, and then I'll offer a sort of longer practice session itself before we turn towards connection and discussion. Hi, Crystal.
Thank you, Alan. So good to see everyone. So, you know, we kind of had a different topic planned for today, and one of the things that's been really present in my school teaching community in particular, as we've sort of spent the last 2 days, our classes at Dalton officially start tomorrow, but we spent the last 2 days and even before our spring break, you know, really gearing up for our sort of digital Dalton. And, you know, I think what just keeps coming up is how uncomfortable we all are. And, you know, the thing I think, you know, I want to open with, and I invite you to share or answer this question in the chat box if something arises for you, is, you know, what is something that you have been doing in the midst of all this sort of discomfort and uncertainty to help nurture a balanced emotional state, right? So we're all experiencing this discomfort, and we're also, you know, sort of being backed into the reality of having to figure out how to stay balanced and how to stay taken care of. So the invitation in that chat box just on the right there is to just, you know, jot a phrase or a word about what's been nurturing you, what you've been doing to stay balanced for your own self-care. And you can just sort of, yeah, coffee and reading. I go outside every day to try to listen to the sounds around me. Looking for and writing about gratitude, free dance classes. I started cooking, meditate before bed. Awesome. Yeah. Making a lot of jam. I love it. Making surgical masks. Oh, that's wonderful. I've seen that online. A lot of people are using their sewing and craft skills to make surgical masks. Daily meditation, yoga, and walking the dog in nature. I go on a run or walk outside, new opportunities. Yeah, new opportunities, so many learning opportunities in this digital format. I signed up for so many free courses. Noticing the blooms, walking and closing the computer. Time with my cats, knitting, great. Being with my children, playing, talking to my husband at last, yeah. So, you know, the interesting about this is, you know, there's, as things just keep popping up, and you can feel free to continue reading them, there's so many resources that we have. And, you know, that is this sort of bizarre silver lining. And I say that with real, I hesitate to say silver lining in some ways now, just because I happen to I have the privilege of not having been affected personally by this in a real way. And yet I still am feeling, when I'm really present to the numbers I see on the news, or some of the conversations that, you know, that on the podcast that I listen to that are going into really vulnerable communities and, you know, having people share their stories of hardship, I cannot help but feel grief and loss. And so I've just watched myself just sort of go on this journey with myself to every day, you know, have these really kind of overwhelming emotions arise when I don't try to push them away, right? So what I really want to talk about and sort of hold, this is really the framing of the whole tonight's session, is is this idea of being able to reframe fear and just uncomfortable emotions in general, right? So many of us are feeling a sense of loss, feeling like things are out of control, feeling anxiety. All these are emotions that are, well, uncomfortable or unpleasant. And the thing about them is that they're widespread, right? This experience of being, you might be on a different place on the spectrum in terms of the degree of discomfort, but we're all, right, experiencing it. And, often we tend to compartmentalize our emotional life, right? When we have that option. This pandemic is not giving us that option, right? Often the sort of narrative in our mind when we're feeling uncomfortable emotions is like, oh yeah, that this emotion's pleasant, right? And I can deal with it. It feels good. I'm joyful, I'm excited, or whatever the emotion is, when it's positive or pleasant. But then there are those emotions that, again, we sort of put into this category of unpleasantness. And under many circumstances that are not the current one, we will have a way or an option to resist or ignore or bury, right? And just not even deal with those negative emotions. So the consideration, that I'm inviting you to take on tonight is, right, the possibility that even the most unpleasant emotions that we're experiencing actually belong here. And by honoring them, right, as they come up, and being curious about where they live in our bodies, and, in our hearts, our emotional state, in our minds, when we're really gentle with ourselves, right, there's a lot of benefit to that, right? On the other hand, when we compartmentalize our emotional life, the downside is that we disconnect from our wholeness, right? The inherent wholeness of ourselves, our human selves, by denying this full natural spectrum of our emotional life, right? That is part of being human, right? And when we do that, we miss an opportunity to practice self-care and learn about how to support ourselves when we need it most. So that's really what we're going to do tonight, is in the hopefully what you feel as a safe space, this space online together, practice caring for some of these more challenging emotions that are arising because of this uncertain time. And so there's a poem I'm going to read. You may have heard it before. It's called The Guest House, and it's by Rumi. And it's one of my favorite poems. I never get tired of it. I use it in all of my classes, with adults and young children and adolescents. And so it really does speak beautifully to this way of holding space and treating our emotions that are even unpleasant as guests, right? So again, it's called The Guest House by Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So just taking a moment to sort of let that land for you. And I'll put it into the chat box as well if you want to look at it again. Just taking a moment to notice what's rising to the top with just those sentiments, those words. If there's anything that you'd like to share in the chat box, all right, feel free to write any thoughts before we transition into a practice. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. I just really appreciate the sentiment of welcoming and befriending that Rumi talks about, and that we talk about a lot in mindfulness. That is this not pushing away, that it doesn't have to be another way than it is, which seems counterintuitive, right? Like in these moments that, no, but this is not good. And yet the ability to allow for what's happening to happen rather than to push against it, since we can't make it go away, that's really where some freedom lies. So we're going to, I'd like to offer a meditation now. And if I say that and you have some sort of reaction to the word meditation, maybe just think of it as a little reflective practice. There's not a special and right way to do this. And there's definitely not a special and right way to feel as you're doing this. But again, as Crystal mentioned, we're thinking to focus this week on gratitude as sort of the and to the both and this, like what's really here is hard, and there are these other things here, but we want to really fold in this notion of welcoming and befriending. So I'm going to offer a gratitude practice that may look a little different if you are a person who practices regular gratitude or does any kind of gratitude journaling or meditation. And so I'll really invite this to be more about noticing what's happening in the body and in the mind. So first, just allowing yourself to find a comfortable position. There's not a right position here to this, but the only right is that you should be guided by somewhere that you can sit for some time comfortably. And for many people, it often helps to sit in an upright way, just to incline the attention inward. But if that feels uncomfortable or unusual and is going to draw all of your attention to how uncomfortable and unusual it is to sit this way, then that's not the right way, and just find a way that feels a little more restful. There's a balance between an ease in your posture and a wakefulness or an alive and alertness. And maybe you can just begin to notice the way that you are breathing in and out, if that feels comfortable to notice. You might notice where you feel breath in the body, like the chest or the belly or the nostrils. And begin to notice really just the experience of being in this body of yours. This body that is constantly giving us all kinds of feedback. Feedback in the form of thoughts in the mind. Feedback in the form of sensations in the body. And feedback in the form of emotions. And really, when we turn inward, these are the three things that we can notice, the three elements of our experience: thoughts, sensations, emotions. So you may become aware of what's pleasant in the body, what feels nice or good right now. You may also become aware of any unpleasant sensations, where there's tightness or tension or any other, perhaps there's itching. And see if you can just balance to the extent that you're able. We don't want to focus on something if it's overwhelming. If it's overwhelming, you can return to something that feels more neutral or more pleasant. That's fine. But to the extent that you're able, as Crystal was talking about, can you just welcome what's happening right now in the body? Even those parts that might not feel as great as other parts. Just with the right now, it's like this. Right now, this is what it feels like in my body. And perhaps some gratitude for a body that allows you even to sit here, that allows you to log into this call, that allows you to hear my voice, that allows you to see this screen. And also know that right now it's like this, and even those sensations that are uncomfortable will not last forever. That all of the experience of the body is transient. And as we sit, we may again begin to notice the mind, the quality of the mind. Perhaps it's very active. Perhaps it feels rather blank, or anywhere in between. This too, it's not a matter of doing anything right or wrong. There's not a correct state. A lot of people sometimes say, I can't meditate. My mind is too active. I get a lot of thoughts. It's just the nature of having a mind. It's actually the way it works for all of us. And so just taking stock of right now in my mind, it's like this. These are the thoughts that are present. And you can perhaps allow both what is pleasant and what is maybe unpleasant. And again, the permission, of course, if what you notice is overwhelming, is too much, then it's absolutely fine to back out of that little room and close the door. Maybe you leave the door ajar, but it's all right to focus on something that feels more manageable. We're not trying to make it harder on ourselves, but to the extent that you notice that which is pleasant and that which is unpleasant, maybe just seeing if you can find the kindness to welcome as a guest whatever's here today in the mind. Right now it's like this. I welcome you, thoughts. And as we rest here and attend to the inner experience, the last thing you may notice are emotions. Perhaps you notice them as physical manifestations. You may notice the tightness of anxiety in the chest, or heaviness of sadness in the shoulders, or tingling of joy. Maybe you're just able to name it in words. Oh, that's fine, but again, can you welcome what is present as a guest? Can you welcome it with kindness and with gratitude for a body that knows how to speak to us, knows how to offer, I'm scared, I'm sad, I'm happy. How lucky we are to have that full range of human experience and know that all of it serves us well. They're each important parts of our experience. So for a few minutes, I'm just going to drop out my voice. The invitation is for you to see if you can just practice orienting to your experience with this quality of welcoming, this quality of gratitude for all that we're experiencing, and befriending that experience with kindness. It's all right if it doesn't feel still in the mind or still in the body. It's also okay to make any adjustment that you need to. That would be what's kindest to your body. But again, just a few moments of not having to do anything, not having to be anything to anyone else, to communicate anything, just being here and noticing with kind awareness. Right now, it's like this. Welcoming any sensation, welcoming all the thoughts and all the emotions. And as we close out this part of the practice, just returning to that specific quality of gratitude. Gratitude is something that helps us to welcome what's here. So just acknowledging the body, the mind, the heart with gratitude. And then perhaps just noticing anything else for which you feel grateful. Maybe those are people, places, possessions, pets. Could even be something that doesn't start with a P. Just inclining the mind toward that expansive sense. And the more we practice gratitude like this, the more it helps us to hold the rest of our experience. And then if the eyes are closed, you're welcome to either keep them closed or gently open them as I just invite you to enjoy some gentle movement. Maybe that's a stretch, a twist, a squeeze, tap, with gratitude and kindness for this body that supports us in all of the ways that it does. And I think often when we think of our bodies, we focus so easily on what's not right or what's not working in the way we'd like it to, that we miss the literally millions of things that had to go right in order for us just to be here and sitting here. So it's nice to be kind to the body, offering it whatever would feel pleasant. Stretch. Perhaps a deep breath. And letting it out slowly. And then just reorienting, if your eyes were closed, reorienting to the space around you, to the room, to the screen. Just taking a moment to let the nervous system make that transition slowly. welcome to note any reflections in the chat, but we're also going to move into just a chance for quick sharing, which could include even your experience of the practice. So Krista will offer us some thoughts for the breakout room, and then after that's done, we'll all come back into the large room. We'll have a chance for some Q&A, discussion, and sharing, and any questions that we can help support you with as you're figuring out this new way to be at home and teaching and or not teaching and all the things that we are doing and changing these days.
So we're going to move into breakout rooms, and you'll be in groups of 3. And you know, Alan, I'm not sure if I have this capacity to put people in breakout rooms enabled.
I'm doing it right now.
Oh, you are? Okay, perfect. It's not showing up on my.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So while he sets it up, I do want to just sort of frame this experience. So you'll each have 2 minutes to talk, and then we'll probably give you a 2-minute at the end to sort of group share if that feels right, just having some extra time to maybe share additional thoughts. And again, the idea is to really listen, and like listen when you're listening, and speak when you speak, but not necessarily both at the same time, right? So just really honoring each person's opportunity to share. We'd like you to choose a timekeeper so that each person gets exactly 2 minutes, just so that we're keeping the sharing equitable there. And we will, let's see, I'm gonna, boom, yeah, he put that, okay, great, we are good. So the questions are in the chat box, but we're also gonna include them in your breakout rooms. Again, so you'll get about 8 minutes for this practice together. Let's say the person with the shortest hair, please be the timekeeper. You could use your timer on your phone if you have that nearby, or watch the clock. And just to keep it simple, and so that happens quickly. The person with the shortest hair will be the timekeeper. Okay, and we'll begin. Oh, wait, so sorry, I want to tell you what the questions are. Okay, so the questions are, what uncomfortable emotions have you become aware of as a result of this uncertain time? And in what ways are you coping with these emotions? And the last question is, what's something that you're grateful for right now? Okay. All right.
So it's an either or, right?
Or, yeah, that was an either or. So in what ways are you coping with these emotions, and or, you know, what's something that you're grateful for right now? Okay.
All right. So you'll find yourself in groups of 3, and in a moment I'm going to open the breakout room. So you'll have an invitation on the front of your screen. You just simply click accept to that. So I've opened the rooms now, and I'm also going to pause the recording. But if you're watching this later, please feel free to maybe journal or take a time to share with someone else about any uncomfortable emotions and how you've been tending to them, how you can welcome them, or something that you're grateful for right now. All right. So we're back from our discussions, and just to close out here, we wanted to offer some ideas for taking home and what to do when we're not together. Crystal has just shared that she's got some YouTube practices up, and we'll share those by email. But basically sort of 2 things to offer for folks as a take home. One would be, we've been discussing gratitude as a resource, and the ways that gratitude and other sort of being of service, altruism, those things are really protective factors for the overwhelm and challenge. So keeping a gratitude practice, and a gratitude practice, many of you may be familiar with it, that could be just naming or doing this aloud, perhaps if you're with someone, or even if you're, can connect or have even a text buddy, of just naming a couple of things. Usually the studies on gratitude do 5. I don't know that that's the magic number, but it's an often used number. 5 things that you're grateful for. That pushes us past the just like 1, the first thing that comes to mind. So we have to kind of dig a little deeper when we do 5. Some people like to do this as a written practice in a journal, or just open a note in your phone even, and have it remind you at night before you go to bed. But again, sort of when we appreciate the good has a chance to appreciate, to grow as a resource for us. And then the other one is befriending, this idea of befriending. So you don't necessarily have to go looking for what doesn't feel good in the system, but when it arises, when something that feels like more of a challenge, and that can be a challenging thought, a challenging emotion, a challenging sensation in the body, perhaps it's some combination of those, but treating those as you would a guest, like Rumi, or as you would a small child. Thich Nhat, someone mentioned in the chat that they've been reading a lot of Thich Nhat Hanh lately. Thich Nhat Hanh especially talks about treating our emotions as like a little child. I see you, sadness. You can be here. I can be here with you. And the way that we might just talk or think sweetly with what it is that we're holding, rather than telling it, go away, I don't want you here, I feel guilty that you're here, I don't like you here. Just knowing that these are all part of the fullness of the lived experience of being human. And we are certainly living a very full time right now of being human. We're at the real range, peak range of that experience for sure. But here we are living this life together in community. And Crystal, I so appreciate your naming that connection that we all have to one another. So we wish you really well. We hope to see you back. If this has felt supportive, then please come back next week. We'll be here to offer some new thoughts and new practices and to spend some time together.